My name is Alyssa, and this is the story of the moment I understood that some people don't want you safe. They want you available. They want you obedient. They want you small enough to control and grateful enough to keep apologizing for having needs. I didn't learn that lesson in a big fight. I learned it in a kitchen I'd sat in my whole life, watching my father's face change the second he heard a number that belonged to me. In my family, there were roles and nobody ever asked if you wanted yours. My dad, Frank, was the rule book. My mom, Denise, was the voice that softened the rules so they sounded like love. And my brother, Jason, was the exception to everything. Jason was the family's permanent emergency. Rent short. Credit card maxed. Late fees stacking. Car payment due. Every time his life caught fire, my parents acted like the universe had personally attacked him, and then they looked at me like I was supposed to bring the water. I was the steady one. The fixer. The good daughter. The one who handled it. When I was a teenager, my dad used to say, "You're the responsible one." I thought it was praise. Now I know it was training. It meant you will carry what other people drop. You will stay calm while everyone else panics. You will absorb the mess so we don't have to feel it. And I did. I covered bills just this once that turned into patterns. I lent money that never came back. I answered phone calls that started with fake sweetness and ended with an amount. And if I hesitated, my dad had one sentence that always landed like a threat wrapped in tradition. "Don't forget who raised you." If I tried to set a boundary, my mom got watery-eyed and whispered, "We're all we have." It made me feel like saying no would collapse the whole family. So I learned to be easy. I learned to be useful. I learned to swallow disappointment and call it maturity. At work, that habit made me unstoppable and exhausted. I took the extra shifts, covered the deadlines nobody wanted. I stayed late to clean up chaos like it was my job to keep everything running. I told myself I was building a future. Truth is, I was building survival. I wanted a cushion, a wall between me and panic, a way to stop living one unexpected expense away from disaster. Then, after months of overtime and nights that blurred into mornings, I got the email. A performance bonus. $15,000. I read it twice. Then again, slower, like the words might vanish if I blinked. $15,000 wasn't just money. It was oxygen. It meant I could pay down debt without feeling sick. It meant I could replace my bald tires before they turned into a disaster. It meant I could finally have a buffer that belonged to me, not to my family's next crisis. I didn't post it. I didn't brag. I didn't even tell my friends at first. I just let myself sit with the feeling in private. I bought a cheap bottle of sparkling juice and toasted my own reflection in the microwave door because nobody in my house was there to clap for me. And then I made one mistake. I told my parents, not to show off, not to provoke, just to share something good like people do when they still believe love is safe. We were at the kitchen table. My mom asked too casually, "How's work going, sweetie?" My dad looked up from his phone like he'd been waiting for that exact question. I smiled, trying to keep it light. "I got a bonus," I said. "A big one." My mom's eyes widened. "How big?" I should have lied. I should have picked a number small enough to be ignored. But I was tired of hiding my life to protect other people's comfort. 15,000, I said. My dad didn't smile. He didn't say congratulations. He nodded slowly, like he was evaluating something he might buy. "Good," he said. "Then you can give half to the family." I laughed because it sounded like a joke. He didn't laugh back. "What do you mean?" I asked, still smiling because my face didn't know how to be anything else around him. He leaned forward, voice calm like he was explaining gravity. "'Cause family comes first," he said. "Jason's behind. Your mother's stressed. We've been carrying a lot. You owe us." That was the moment. The moment the bonus stopped being mine and became a test. Not of generosity, of obedience. And sitting there with my hands wrapped around a mug I didn't even want, I realized something that made my stomach go cold. The second I had something good, my family didn't clap. They reached. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Dad, I earned this," I said. "I have plans. I need to pay things down. I need to build savings." My mom's expression shifted into that practiced look she wore when she wanted to sound loving while pushing you into a corner. "Alyssa, honey," she said softly, "we're not saying you can't have anything. We're saying you can help. Help." That word always showed up like a polite mask. It never meant help. It meant hand it over. My dad set his mug down with a quiet click. "Half," he repeated. 7,500. "That's fair. Fair." As if fairness is taking the reward someone else earned and calling it family. I swallowed. "Why half?" I asked. "Why is the number already decided?" My dad's eyes narrowed. "Because we're not asking for all of it," he said, like I should be grateful for his restraint. Then he hit me with the familiar pressure, the one he always used when he needed me to fold. "We've done a lot for you," he said. "This family fed you. This family kept a roof over your head. Don't act like you did it alone." I felt my chest tighten. 'Cause that line is designed to make you forget the part where parenting is not a loan you repay with your adult paycheck. My mom reached across the table like she was about to hold my hand, then stopped just short, as if touch should be earned. "Jason is really struggling," she whispered. "He's ashamed. He doesn't want to ask you." I almost laughed. Jason didn't want to ask me. Jason was probably already calculating what he'd buy once he got it. "What is the money for?" I asked. My dad answered too fast. "Bills," he said. "Catching up. Adult stuff." I stared at him. "Which bills?" My dad's jaw tightened. My mom looked away. That was my second warning. The first was the demand. The second was the vagueness. 'Cause vague is how people hide the truth when they know the truth would make you say no. "Tell me exactly," I said. "What do you need it for?" My dad's voice got colder. "Don't interrogate me," he snapped. "This isn't a negotiation. Not a negotiation." That's what he said whenever he wanted to turn my boundaries into disrespect. My mom added, "Alyssa, please. Don't make this ugly. Make this ugly." Translation: Don't make us feel guilty for taking from you. I took a breath. I felt my pulse in my throat. And I did something I almost never did in that house. I paused long enough to hear my own thoughts. Pictured my bank app. The bonus deposit. The debts. The tires. The emergency fund I'd been dreaming about for years. Then I pictured Jason smiling at his phone, calling it bad luck while my parents called it stress. And I pictured my father telling everyone at church what a good family man he was while demanding my reward like it belonged to him. My fingers curled around the mug. "I'm not giving you half," I said. My dad didn't blink. My mom froze. The air got heavy, like the whole room was waiting to see if I'd take it back. "Excuse me," my dad said quietly. "I said I'm not giving you half," I repeated. "If you need help, tell me exactly what for. I might be able to help with something specific. But I am not handing over $7,500 just because you said so." My dad leaned back slowly, like I'd just revealed who I really was. "So," he said, voice sharp with disgust, "money changed you." My mom's eyes filled, right on cue. "Alyssa," she whispered, "we're your family." And my dad delivered the line like a verdict. "Family comes first," he said. "If you don't understand that, then you don't deserve what you got." My stomach sank, but my voice stayed calm. "I deserve it because I earned it," I said. That was when my dad's face hardened into something I'd seen before, usually right before he punished someone with silence and shame. Fine, he said. Keep your money. Then he stood up, looked straight at me, and added, but don't you dare come back here asking for anything when life humbles you. And in that moment, I understood the real deal he was offering. It wasn't love. It was access. Pay or be cast out. I didn't know yet how far he would take it. I didn't know he would turn my refusal into a public story. I didn't know he was already planning the posts that would paint me as the selfish daughter who abandoned her own blood. I only knew one thing: I had finally said no. And in my family, no is never the end. It's the trigger. The fallout didn't come immediately. That's the thing people don't tell you about families like mine. They don't explode right away. They simmer. They wait. They let your words sit just long enough to turn into a story where you're the villain. I went home that night with my head buzzing, replaying my dad's voice over and over. Don't you dare come back asking for anything. As if I ever had. As if I hadn't been the one answering calls, covering gaps, fixing messes since I was old enough to understand numbers. I opened my banking app again, not to admire the bonus, but to reassure myself it was still there. It felt fragile, like something that could be taken if I wasn't careful. The next morning my mom texted me. No greeting. Just one line. Your father is really hurt. Hurt. Not angry. Not demanding. Hurt. That word was always her favorite tool. Hurt turns boundaries into cruelty. Hurt makes you the aggressor. I stared at the message for a long time. Typed, deleted, typed again. Finally I wrote, I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm trying to be responsible. She didn't reply. Instead, an hour later, my brother Jason called. I almost didn't answer. But old habits die hard. What's your problem? He said immediately. No hello. No check-in. Just accusation. Dad says you're acting brand new because you got some money. I took a breath. It's not some money. It's my bonus. I earned it. Jason scoffed. Yeah, well, must be nice. Some of us don't get handed everything. Handed everything. The irony almost made me laugh. I wasn't handed anything, I said. I worked for it. Whatever, he snapped. Dad's been stressing all night. Mom's crying. You could fix this. Fix this. Translation, give in. I felt something shift in me then. A quiet anger, cleaner than the old guilt. I'm not fixing something I didn't break, I said. Jason went silent for a beat, then his tone changed. So you're really choosing money over family? There it was. The false choice. Money or love. Obedience or exile. I'm choosing myself, I said. He laughed, short and mean. Good luck with that, he said, and hung up. I sat on my couch, phone still in my hand, heart pounding. I expected to feel regret. Instead, I felt exposed. Like I'd stepped out of a costume I'd worn my whole life, and now everyone could see I didn't fit their script anymore. That afternoon, my dad posted on Facebook. I didn't see it right away. A coworker texted me. Hey, is everything okay with your family? That's when I knew. I opened the app, hands shaking. My dad's post was long. Carefully written. No names, but everyone knew. It's heartbreaking when your own child forgets where they came from. We sacrifice so much, and when we need support, we're told no. Family used to mean something. Comments were immediate. So sad. Kids these days. Praying for your family. My chest tightened. He hadn't asked for support. He had demanded it. He hadn't needed help. He had wanted control. But online, none of that mattered. The story was set. And I was the ungrateful daughter who chose money over blood. I wanted to comment. To explain. To scream the truth into the void. Instead, I closed the app. I remembered something I'd read once. You don't correct lies in the room where they were designed to win. That night I barely slept. Not because I felt guilty, because I realized my family was willing to rewrite reality to punish me for saying no. And that meant this was never about the bonus. It was about what happens when the person who always pays finally stops. The messages kept coming. Aunts, cousins, people who hadn't checked on me in years suddenly had opinions about my character. Your parents did their best. Money isn't everything. You only get one family. Each one landed like a tiny weight on my chest. Not because they were true, but because they were familiar. This was the chorus I'd grown up with. The background noise that trained me to doubt my own reality. I started drafting a response in my notes app. Facts, timelines, numbers, how much I'd given over the years, how often I'd shown up, how rarely anyone had shown up for me. I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. I realized something important. I didn't need to convince people who were committed to misunderstanding me. I needed to protect myself from being pulled back into the same cycle. My mom finally called that evening. Her voice was soft, shaky. "Alyssa," she said, "why are you doing this to us? Doing this to us." As if I'd orchestrated a public spectacle, not responded to a private demand. "I'm not doing anything to you," I said. "I'm just not giving away my bonus." She sniffed. "Your father feels betrayed." Betrayed. Another heavy word. "He shouldn't," I said. "I didn't promise him anything." She sighed dramatically. "You're being very cold." Cold. That label again. Women like my mom use it when they realize emotion won't move you anymore. "I'm being careful," I said. "There's a difference." She went quiet, then said, "You know Jason really needs help." I closed my eyes. "Jason always needs help," I said. "And I always pay." "I'm done." Her tone sharpened. "So that's it? You get some money and suddenly you're above us?" Above us. As if boundaries equal arrogance. "No," I said. "I'm just not below you anymore." Silence. Then she said, "I don't recognize you." That one hurt. Not because it was true, but because it confirmed something I'd been avoiding. They didn't recognize me unless I was useful. After the call, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the wall. I thought about all the times I'd postponed my own needs because someone else's crisis was louder. All the times I'd told myself I'd rest later, save later, live later. The bonus wasn't a windfall. It was a line. A line between the life I'd been surviving and the life I wanted to build. And my family was standing on the other side, demanding a toll. The next morning, I made a decision. I gathered receipts. Not for social media. For myself. Bank transfers. Old texts asking for money. Messages thanking me that turned into new requests weeks later. I needed to see it clearly. Not as isolated incidents. As a pattern. And once I saw it laid out, I felt something unexpected. Relief. 'Cause patterns mean it was never personal. It was systematic. That afternoon, my dad sent me a message directly. "We raised you better than this." I typed back slowly. "You raised me to be responsible." "I'm doing that." He replied instantly. "Responsibility includes helping family." I paused, then wrote, "Helping doesn't mean surrendering." He didn't respond. Instead, an hour later, his post was shared again by someone else, with added commentary about selfish children and modern values. That's when I understood. He wasn't looking for reconciliation. He was building a narrative. One where he was the victim and I was the cautionary tale. And once that clicked, something in me stopped scrambling. I didn't need to fix the story. I needed to exit it. I turned off notifications. I took a long shower. I let the water run over me and thought about the future. Not the next argument. Not the next demand. The future where my money stayed mine. Where my worth wasn't measured by how much I gave away. Where family comes first didn't mean I came last. Felt terrifying. And it felt right. A few days later, my dad tried a different tactic. He showed up at my apartment. No warning. I froze when I heard the knock. My heart jumped straight into my throat. Part of me wanted to hide. Part of me wanted to confront him. I opened the door cautiously. He stood there with his arms crossed, face set in that familiar disappointed expression. "Can we talk?" he asked. Not really a question. I stepped aside. He walked in, looking around like he was inspecting a space he still believed belonged to him. "You've got a nice place," he said. "Must be that bonus." I didn't respond. He sat down heavily on my couch. "I didn't raise you to turn your back on family," he said. "I didn't turn my back," I replied. "I just didn't hand over my money." He shook his head. "You're missing the point." "No," I said calmly. "I think I finally see it." He leaned forward. "Do you have any idea how this looks?" There it was. Image. Reputation. Appearances. "I don't care how it looks," I said. "I care about what's fair." He laughed, humorless. "Life isn't fair," he said. "Family is about sacrifice." "Then why is it always my sacrifice?" I asked. He stiffened. "Because you're the strong one." That sentence used to make me proud. Now it made me angry. "Being strong doesn't mean being drained," I said. He scoffed. "You sound like those therapists online." I met his gaze. "Maybe," I said. "But I also sound like someone who's done being taken for granted." He stood up abruptly. "You think you're better than us," he snapped. "I think I'm allowed to keep what I earn," I said. His face reddened. "If you walk this path," he said, pointing at me, "don't expect us to be there when you fall." I felt strangely calm. "You haven't been there," I said quietly. "You've just been collecting." He stared at me like he'd been slapped. Then he shook his head. "This money has poisoned you," he said. I shook my head too. "No," I replied. "It just showed me the truth." He left without another word, slamming the door behind him. I sank onto the couch, shaking. Not because I regretted what I said. Because I knew that was the last honest conversation we'd have for a while. That night I cried. Not dramatic sobs. Just tears slipping out while I stared at the ceiling. I wasn't mourning the bonus. I was mourning the fantasy that one day my family would be proud of me without needing something from me. The next day, I transferred part of the bonus into a separate savings account. An emergency fund. My emergency. Not Jason's. Not my parents'. Mine. Felt like locking a door from the inside. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. The silence that followed was loud. No calls. No texts. Just the occasional indirect post from my dad about loyalty and values. I stopped looking. I focused on work. On paying down debt. On things that moved my life forward instead of backward. Friends noticed the change before I did. "You seem lighter," one of them said over coffee. I laughed. "I think I stopped carrying things that weren't mine," I replied. That was the truth. The bonus allowed me to breathe, but the boundary allowed me to live. My mom eventually broke the silence. She sent a message that read, "I hope you're happy." Not a question. A warning. I typed back, "I'm calmer." She didn't reply. I realized then how much my family fed on reaction. Without it, they didn't know what to do. A week later, my aunt called. "Your father is really struggling," she said. "He feels disrespected." I listened quietly. Then I said, "I'm not discussing money with anyone but myself." She sighed. "You're tearing the family apart." I closed my eyes. I didn't tear anything apart, I said. I just stopped holding it together by myself. She didn't have an answer for that. I started therapy around that time. Not because my family told me to, because I wanted to understand why saying no felt like committing a crime. My therapist asked me a question that stuck with me. What did you learn would happen if you didn't help? I thought about it. I learned I'd be abandoned, I said. She nodded. And what's happening now? I considered it. I'm being pressured, I said. But I'm not abandoned. I'm still here. That realization changed something fundamental in me. Fear loses its power when the threat doesn't come true. One afternoon, I ran into my brother at the grocery store. He looked uncomfortable. "Dad's still mad," he said. I shrugged. "Okay." He frowned. "You really don't care?" I looked at him. "I care about myself now," I said. "You could try it sometime." He rolled his eyes and walked away. I felt no triumph, just distance. Distance is underrated. Gives you room to see clearly. That night, I reviewed my budget again. The numbers made sense. The future looked possible. I realized something else too. If I had given them half, it wouldn't have ended there. There would have been another emergency, another demand, another test of loyalty. Saying no once saved me thousands more down the line. And more importantly, it saved me from disappearing into a role that never loved me back. Months passed. The bonus became less exciting and more useful, which is exactly what I wanted. I paid off a credit card. I replaced my tires. I kept building my savings. Life stabilized. My family, however, stayed dramatic. Every holiday came with a passive-aggressive message. Every milestone was overshadowed by my choice. Eventually, the narrative shifted. I wasn't just selfish. I was changed, influenced, brainwashed. I heard it through the grapevine. I let it go. One evening, my mom showed up unannounced, just like my dad had. She looked tired, older. "I don't want to fight," she said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "Then don't," I replied. She sighed. "Your father feels like he lost you." I thought about that. "He didn't lose me," I said. "He lost access to my bank account." She flinched. "That's unfair," she said. "Is it?" I asked. "When did he last ask how I was doing?" She couldn't answer. "We're family," she said weakly. "Family doesn't invoice you for love," I replied. Tears filled her eyes. Real ones, maybe. Or maybe just well-practiced. "I just want things to go back to normal," she said. I shook my head. "Normal wasn't healthy," I said. She left shortly after, shoulders slumped. I felt sad. But I didn't feel wrong. There's a difference. Later that night, I scrolled through my dad's old posts. Years of talking about sacrifice, values, hard work. I wondered if he ever noticed how those values always flowed in one direction. Toward him. Toward Jason. Never toward me. I blocked him. Not out of anger. Out of necessity. Peace was immediate. Like stepping out of a room with a constant hum you didn't realize was exhausting you. I started planning a small trip. Nothing fancy. Just somewhere quiet. I realized I'd been postponing joy until I felt allowed to have it. I wasn't waiting anymore. On my birthday, I didn't hear from my parents. I did hear from friends. I spent the day doing things I liked. I cooked. I walked. I laughed. Felt strangely radical. Later that evening, my dad sent a single text. "Hope you're doing well. No apology. No acknowledgement." Just a breadcrumb. I stared at it, then put my phone down. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish him. Because I didn't want to restart the cycle. Silence isn't cruelty. Sometimes it's maintenance. A few days later, my mom sent me a photo of Jason's new car. "We helped him get back on his feet," she wrote. I looked at the picture and felt nothing. No jealousy. No anger. Just confirmation. They would always prioritize him. And that was no longer my problem to solve. I muted the thread. I focused on my life. On people who asked how I was without calculating what they could get. On building something steady. Therapy helped me untangle the guilt. I learned that being good in my family meant being empty. Being whole meant being labeled selfish. I chose whole. One afternoon, I ran into a neighbor who'd watched my family visits over the years. "You seem happier," she said. I smiled. "I am," I replied. It was true. Not ecstatic. Not perfect. But grounded. The kind of happiness that doesn't depend on approval. That night, I transferred a small amount from my bonus to a charity I cared about. My choice. My terms. Giving felt good again when it wasn't coerced. Looking back, I can see how close I was to giving in. How easily I could have handed over the money just to stop the noise. If I had, my family would still be calling. Till demanding. Till disappointed. And I'd be back where I started. Tired. Anxious. Invisible. The bonus didn't change me. It exposed the rules I'd been living under. Rules I never agreed to. I learned that family comes first is only noble when it doesn't require someone to come last. I learned that love that disappears when you say no was never unconditional. And I learned that financial independence is about more than money. It's about choice. I still get waves of guilt sometimes. Old instincts don't vanish overnight. But they pass quicker now. I remind myself of the facts. I earned the bonus. I didn't abandon anyone. I just stopped being the emergency fund. And that's allowed. Healthy, even. My life is quieter now. Less dramatic. More real. I don't need to defend my decisions to people who benefit from my silence. I need to live with them. And I can. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told you owe people access to your life because you share DNA, hear this. Love is not a debt. Support is not obedience. And family is not supposed to drain you dry and call it tradition. When my dad said, "Family comes first," what he meant was, you come last. I don't live by that rule anymore. I didn't lose my family when I kept my bonus. I lost an illusion. And what I gained was something better. Peace. Stability. A future that doesn't depend on someone else's approval. Saying no didn't make me selfish. It made me free.